Okay, just a few logistics here first. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll make that link available to you after today's webinar. For ease of the conversation, all phone lines are muted. However, we will be having some time for questions towards the end of today's webinar, and at that time, to unmute your line, you just simply press *7. We really encourage your questions, though, however, anytime during the webinar, and you are welcome to submit the questions via the chat bar at any time. We have a SBJI person here that will be cataloging the questions and recording them, and again, we'll take the questions towards the end of today's webinar. So please let us know your thoughts and then what you're thinking. And finally, after today's webinar, you will receive a very quick evaluation, and it's just please take a few minutes to complete that. It helps inform our future webinar topics and series. So real briefly, again, this is Leah Lutz with the Sexual Violence Justice Institute at the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault. We're really pleased to have this opportunity to reach out to many of you, team leaders and coordinators, and especially thank you to the Office on Violence Against Women for support of our Rural Technical Assistance Project. Our mission is we're dedicated to promoting justice for victims of sexual violence through multidisciplinary collaboration, leadership, and resources. And to learn more, please visit our website. On today's webinar, there will be 2 SBJI staff with you today. My name is Leah Lutz, and I'm a collaboration specialist and a teaching and connections coordinator. And then my colleague is Sharon Haas, who is also a collaboration specialist and specializes in evaluation resources and technical assistance to teams and team leaders. And then we're really fortunate and thankful to have some team leaders also joining us today. We have Grace Francis from the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence in Tallahassee, Ashley Riley Lopez, who is from Tucasa Inc. in Alamosa, Colorado, and Jessica Van Yperen with the Lyon County, Minnesota SMART Team. That's an acronym we use here in Minnesota. It means similar things to a CERT team in Marshall, Minnesota. So for today's session, Sharon and I are going to start out and give some content, and then we're going to hear from Grace, Ashley, and Jessica. And now I'm going to turn things over to Sharon Haas.
All right. Well, great to be with you today. We know that those of you out there who are in a leadership role with teams are in various situations. Some of you are in formally established teams, and others have less formal structures. Some might have specific time that's designated to the team leadership role, and for others you might share it with a number of different people. But whatever your context is, and we're going to find out more about that in a minute, there's something, we're pretty confident that there will be something of relevance to you in today's presentation. And so here's what we hope to accomplish today. We're going to focus our time on presenting a somewhat loose framework for thinking about the various tasks and responsibilities that make up the role of multidisciplinary team leadership. We'll briefly touch on some research that's related to this, and then, as Leah mentioned, in the last half of the presentation, we'll be hearing from skilled leaders familiar with the role of team leadership. They'll share some of the things that most contributed to success for their teams and some of the things that they learned along the way. So to get started, we're interested in hearing from you. And so if you can respond to the question on the screen, how many of you are in a leadership role with a SART or a sexual assault response type team right now? And this is a team that addresses sexual assault cases. You can respond with yes or with no. All right, so it's looking as if we've got a 2/3, 1/3 split with 2/3 of you in a leadership role, and then a third who are not. That's helpful to know. So I'd like to start out with a quote from Sheryl Sandberg. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So those of you who are working with teams are probably keenly aware that a big part of your role is to involve and to engage all of the members, all of the talents of your team, so that they bring their knowledge and experience to the discussion in ways that inform the work and that lead to stronger decisions on the part of the group. And you want to create the conditions in that team setting where members do this regardless of your presence or your absence. So when we're referring to leadership, the leadership role, we're generally referring to a kind of steering the ship or heading in the right direction, checking the compass by letting best practice, research, your experience with what gets desired results inform your direction. So maybe this role is played by you as a coordinator, or maybe it's played by another member of your team, but it's a crucial one and not one to be overlooked or neglected. So here's another quote. This one relates to the role of the site coordinator or the team coordinator in the management role, from a well-known author and educator on organizational management and leadership, Peter Drucker. Management here refers to the coordination role that team leaders play, dealing with many of the critical tasks and details of that role. And so the role of site coordinator falls pretty heavily in the area of management and coordination. In a study conducted by Nicole Allen and several colleagues, looking not at SARTs but at domestic violence coordinating councils, the authors asked team leaders to describe their role with teams. And these were the responses that resulted, and you'll see the breakdown of each of those responses. Bridge between organizations and disciplines, administrative tasks and functions, bringing new knowledge and information to the team, driving the activity of the team and focusing their attention on the critical things, and influencing the process and structure. So if you were describing your work as a site coordinator or a team leader, wonder what those numbers would look like. All right, so we're going to give you a chance to find out as a group, and so this is an experiment to see if we can get some general sense of how your role with teams breaks down. So for those of you who are currently in the role of team coordinator, please respond by ranking the option there that is the biggest focus of your role as a 1, and then following with 2, 3, 4, and 5 as the least focus. And for those of you who currently are not in a role as team leader, you can feel free to indicate how you think the role of your team's leadership breaks down if that's relevant. So go ahead and respond to those. All right, we're seeing several responses here. Okay. It looks like the specific responses are not going to display, but it looks like a pretty even split, maybe a little bit higher in relationship to administrative tasks and functions, but otherwise a pretty even split between those roles. All right. Well, thank you very much for your responses there. Before we get into the details about team leadership and coordination, it's important to at least mention what we're talking about or referring to when we talk about SARTs, or multidisciplinary teams that focus on sexual assault cases. For our purposes, we're thinking about an entity that generally holds this goal that's represented on the slide as a target. In terms of structure, generally we're referring to a group that formally or at least is loosely connected, group of responders from most of the core disciplines that address sexual assault cases. And in order for team leadership to be relevant, the grouping needs to meet at least on some periodic basis, hopefully monthly or at least quarterly. And those involved represent different disciplines within the system. Advocates, law enforcement, healthcare responders, prosecution, probation, and again, whose purpose is stated there on the slide. This is generally what we're referring to when we refer to a SART. And now I'm going to turn this over to Leah.
All right. So we wanted to give you just a little visual to help just kind of frame our conversation today, and for you to think about the role as well. So if you think about the team meeting or some outcome of the team process as kind of that tip of the iceberg, what is visible, what is seen, what is exposed, something that you may get a lot of feedback on, hearing things a lot about the team meeting or how many people are attending or so on. And so what we really urge you to do is think about just what's under that water and what we believe are the really key functions and aspects of that role of the team leadership or the site coordinator. So today we're going to talk about that planning role, connecting role, the strategy role, how you can design tools, how you think about facilitating, connecting with the critical responders in your community and so on. That thinking too about what needs to happen in a large group, a small group, and so on. But basically all those things that go on behind the scenes, or in this case, those things that go on under the water. We also know from having the opportunity to speak to many of you and work with many of you that there are many differences and there are also similarities to the context that you operate in, to the type of environment, everything from rural to campus. We know that there's different contexts within the rural, even how you're organized with your team. We know that some of the teams have multi-purposes with CCRs and SARTs. Some have one unique purpose, a SART. And what we really want you to do today is think about, even though there are differences, that there are similarities in the characteristics of team leadership, that no matter what context your iceberg is floating in out there, can lead to effective, high-functioning teams. And we really believe that that part below the water is often quite larger than the exposed part, that visible part, that tip of the iceberg, and really how to be intentional about that large part of the site coordinator role that is invisible. That's maybe not seen to everybody, and maybe different parts will be even seen to you at different times in your development and the process of your team, but it's really, really imperative to the overall scope and landscape of leading and organizing a team. And why we believe it's so important is because all of you want to seek change in your community and desired change on behalf of victims and how responders respond to those victims. And in order to do that, it's really imperative to develop that climate and attend to what is below the surface, because we know that all of you want to be successful, and we know that meant there's a lot of success in communities, but really crucial to use and think about your multidisciplinary collaborative as a strategy to achieve the desired change and the outcomes in the community and in the response that you're looking for. And the reason why there are 4 different change signs there is we know that that change needs to also reflect the community need, the victim experience. So there's no one right or wrong answer about the types of change that your multidisciplinary initiative is trying to achieve.
All right, so what are those invisible things that all of you who are team leaders or site coordinators are doing that help lead teams to success in accomplishing systems change? Leah has mentioned a few of those, and we've drawn those different tasks and responsibilities into 3 categories, mostly for the purpose of describing them. So some skills and responsibilities certainly cross over into more than one of these categories, and that's why we refer to this as somewhat of a loose framework. So some aspects of these categories are somewhat fluid. Another point I would make about this is that in outlining these skills and responsibilities, it's not necessary that every one of these roles be filled by the team coordinator. You just want to be intentional about how and if these roles are assigned or fulfilled on your team. So that first one, the leadership role, refers, as mentioned earlier, that steering the ship role. And to clarify, that doesn't mean in terms of any particular meeting, but it's more of a broader bird's eye view that's informed by an understanding rooted in experience, research, and others' experience with practice that have led to better results for victims, cases of sexual violence as a whole. So we're going to talk more about this in the slides that follow. And then next, in terms of the facilitator role, that refers to attention that's paid to context and process. So are the conditions present where meaningful work can occur with the right people at the table, under the right circumstances, and with conditions in place that authorize those people at the table to make decisions and carry the work of the team forward within their agency? And then finally, that coordinator role, that refers to all of the ways that team leadership maintains connections, continuity between members, and between meetings. You can see why we talk about this as there's a fair amount of overlap and somewhat of a loose structure. Many aspects of these roles blend together and cross one another, but our purposes for dividing them this way are, as I mentioned, to highlight the importance of each aspect of the role. And for those of you out there who either have part-time or volunteer leadership, this might help you think about how best to delegate and with whom to get best results. And then another reason is to help you to ensure that each role is being played by someone in some way and that you're not leaving out important parts of each of the roles. So at this point, for those who do have handouts, I would refer you to the one-page handout that was attached with a reminder email. Unfortunately, it wasn't a handout that would fit on the screen, but there's an outline of what that handout looks like on this page. And we'll go into greater detail on the slides that follow, so you will get that content. We'll make sure that you get that handout as well. We'll be talking about key goals in relationship to each of these roles, some strategies for getting to the goals, and some intended longer range outcomes that the short-term goals are designed to realize. Again, in each of the leadership, the facilitator, and the coordinator role. And note that on your handout that the key goals relate across the page and move on to strategy and in turn outcome. So once again, tremendous overlap in the roles. So if you see or hear some of that as we're talking, that's the reason. We're just trying to distinguish each of the specific roles and make sure that that those are covered. So on the slides that follow, we'll start to delve more deeply into each. So your perspective in the leader role is a distinct and an important one. It's a perspective that holds the vision and the values and the long-range perspective for the team. So in this role, you represent a view of the whole and not just the parts. Because you don't just have single roles in mind, but the whole system, you're able to think and act a bit more strategically. So your leader role can involve troubleshooting, removing boulders from the road, and by this I mean I'm referring to team obstacles, so that the team can proceed with and focus on the work at hand. So let's look a little bit deeper into that leader role. This role is an important one, as I mentioned, and it's important at all stages of the team, but it's a crucial one as a team is forming. If you want a team whose purpose is clear, and if you look over to the right column, the outcome column, that's the one I'm referring to, a team whose purpose is clear, where member agencies as well as team members are invested, where members are in agreement about the team's role and focus, and where you know what you want to accomplish and you're getting at some results, where team members have good clarity about the team and what it's designed to achieve, that they're taking risks and trying new promising practices. Those are what we're thinking of in this sense as leadership results. That steering the ship and engaging talents of the team in the work that has a clear focus. So as I mentioned, I started at the right-hand column. Typically, we here in the United States don't read from right to left. But when you're laying out a plan of action, it is helpful to articulate and think about what success looks like before you start thinking about and describing how you intend to accomplish it. So let's look at that first line. So again, looking at the box to the right, that intended outcome, you're interested in clarity, long-term investment. One of the ways that you might start to think about that is to go back to the left box, start with leadership buy-in. And this refers to agency leadership buy-in. I'd ask you to think about how many of you have been assigned to attend a committee meeting where you don't have the kind of authority that you need in order to make decisions or bring change proposals back to your agency. It probably has some impact on how invested you feel. And so you're really going to want buy-in from those home agencies that each of the members work within. And articulating common goals early is one of the strategies that might move things in that direction. So let's take another one. Again, if you look to that right box, your intended outcome, and you're interested in a team model or an approach where team members are invested, trying new things, proposing new promising practices to their agency's leadership and staff. You'll want to welcome that action, provide opportunities, and also reward it. So again, I'd ask that you think of an example where you were a part of a group where you felt motivated to go the extra mile because you wanted what the team was trying to help succeed. And you might have been asked to do more than you were technically responsible for, but you felt invested in the results. You felt well suited to the task, and everyone was doing their part in some way. So it was one of the characteristics of it was some shared leadership. Everyone was being asked to bring their talents to the table. So these are some examples in the leadership category. There are others, and you'll see that on that first grid of leadership that was represented at the beginning. There are others, but we'll stop there for now, and we're going to move on to the next category. So let's move to the facilitator role. On the slide, one of the phrases you see there, if you can see that small print, is helps to bring about an outcome. The way in which we're using this category is, in this particular instance, it mostly refers to all the planning, the tools, the processes that go into creating an inclusive and safe atmosphere that helps the team have important conversations that help it to progress in its goals. So if you take a look at this grid representing the facilitator role, considering the outcome category first, you're wanting to create an environment where team members feel invested, feel safe, share candidly, they show up and contribute, and bring their best thinking to the table. So what would be the goals and strategies that contribute to this type of environment? And hopefully some are represented to the left in the middle column there. So let's take one of the rows from the grid on the previous page. If you look at that right-hand box, the intended outcome, we want team members to share candidly. How might we make that happen? Or contribute to that happening? The box to the left indicates that we'll need a trusting, inclusive environment to ensure that members share candidly. So what's our strategy? Take a look at that middle box. One way to get there might be to establish ground rules or guidelines, ensure that team members are involved in creating them. That's a critical part of this. So what might that look like? You'll want to have an intentional conversation about that, about what team members expect from and commit to one another. That's not something you want to assume or assume is understood. So this can result in genuine input from all team members taking risks with one another. It might also lead to a sense of accountability on the part of self and on the part of others. So what happens when the things that team members have committed to and committed to one another are not honored? If you have these guidelines in place, you can certainly refer back to them as a reminder to members of their commitments to one another. But it's important to remember if members are not held accountable in some way when they operate outside of the group guidelines, this being an important facilitator role, it can have the impact of breaking down trust within the group. And so if you're able to establish and maintain this environment as a team facilitator, you're likely to create a space where team members risk bringing their hard questions and their honest challenges to the table. And as all of you know, team members need to feel safe and be able to assume that their views are going to be respected, though not necessarily unchallenged. and you're creating that atmosphere for that to be able to happen. So again, looking at the outcome box on the right, you're interested in a team where it doesn't feel necessary to badger members with frequent reminders, but you can count on them to show up and bring their ideas and their reservations to the discussion. Again, I'm going to ask you to think about a planning or a work group that you've been a part of where you looked forward to attending the meetings because they were highly productive and they were relevant to you. What did those meetings look like? And what happened at those meetings? One thing to think about is to be careful not to fill meetings with information sharing that can fairly easily happen in other types of correspondence. Think about who's at the table and plan meetings that engage their particular knowledge and their expertise. So if you're looking for detailed input from team members on a topic, one possible way is to prepare specific questions and divide that group into pairs and discuss those questions. And then bring the group back together and have them share some comments generally. Another way to do this is to ask questions of the full group, but one thing you might do is to ask them to jot down some notes before opening up the discussion. If there's a specific topic the team needs to explore, be sure that those who will have important input to the topic are briefed and present for the discussion. All of those are a part of using member skills and time well and wisely, that middle strategy box. So on to the coordinator role. And we saw that this might be one that is a little bit larger portion of team coordinator's role. This is the connector, the relationship builder, the practical keeper of continuity between members and between meetings. So if we take a look again to that right column, you're interested in a team whose agencies feel a connection and a familiarity with you as the team lead, but you're also interested in team members connecting with one another. So this role is really the nuts and bolts, having input to agendas, team members seeing agendas ahead of a meeting, continuity, team members knowing the big picture and all the parts that lead to that big picture, creating that continuity and connection between people and activities. So we'll take a look at one of these roles. This slide refers to the relationship building on the part of the team lead with all agencies. The strategies that make team members and their agencies more familiar with one another could also be on this slide. As an example, your hospital has a new setup, a new facility. The team could be taken on a facility tour, creating that closer connection between different team member settings. And so as you're talking about evidence storage at a subsequent team member, at a subsequent team meeting, team members can actually picture the scene and make fitting and realistic recommendations because they have that familiarity not only with member agency roles, but the settings themselves. Another role within the coordinator role, you want team members to feel a sense of responsibility to one another and to the task at hand. What happens when issues get raised in meetings that require action? It's important to indicate what will happen next. It needs to be realistic, needs to show up in notes, threads of continuity that connect team members and team actions together. So that gives you just a glimpse at the breakdown of each of these roles that we've laid out of leader, facilitator, and coordinator. Certainly feel free to use this to think about how these roles are filled in your sexual assault response team, or how you might engage team members differently related to each or any of these roles. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Leah, and you're going to hear from some team leadership with some of their stories and particulars about how they've carried these roles out.
All right, thanks Sharon, and hi everyone again. We're going to transition to our panel so you can get a feel for how some of these ideas are carried out in practice. And we're just going to take a couple of seconds here to transition. So if the panel can unmute their lines right now by pressing *7. And we're going to start with Jessica Van Yperen, Lyon County Marshall, Minnesota, who is the team leader of the SMART team. Jessica, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me, Leah?
Gotcha. Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
So Jessica, do you want to just start by just sharing just a little bit about your community and your team?
Sure. My community, we are probably about a population of about 13,000. My team started in 2009, April 2009, and we are a college town. We're probably the biggest town in southwest Minnesota within about 150-mile radius, I'd say. And my team is made up of members from law enforcement, the medical community, advocates, probation, prosecution, everyone pretty much. We have members from the college on our team. We have members from the high school on our team. We have roughly probably about 16 active members on our team.
Great, thank you. Well, we just heard Sharon talking about the leadership aspect of the role. Can you talk a little bit about what you've learned about being a leader as it's been described?
Certainly. As you guys talked about it today, I kind of wanted to touch on that shared vision of success. Our team has kind of a focus on a simple but yet very complicated goal of, is what we're doing today at this meeting or at this event, is this victim-centered? And usually about at least once a meeting, myself or a team member is going to ask that question of the team. This focus really requires constant maintenance. You know, with the erratic timing of sexual assaults in our smaller jurisdiction, it makes it a real big challenge for our team members to stay motivated and focused on this goal. We can go weeks or even longer without a sexual assault, and then maybe we'll have like 7 in a weekend. So when our team's only meeting once a month for an hour and a half, we really need to get focused on sexual assault and not the meeting that team member just left, or not something personal that's going on that they're working through. So I hate to say this, but as a leader, sometimes it's kind of like herding cats. I need to get them all in that same direction, that same shared vision that we're here to talk about, a victim-centered response in our protocol or in what we're doing working with victims. So that shared vision of success needs to always be at top of mind in a meeting. Another thing as a leader for my team, what I need to do is really recognize the courage of my team members and really engage all those members. I need to bring out their expertise about a particular topic we're discussing. I'm not the expert in the room, they are. So I try to do that by making them feel comfortable on the team with myself and with each other. I encourage them at meetings and outside of meetings if they've brought up a tough topic that maybe create some opposition from other team members. I appreciate them for bringing that up so that we can have a very difficult discussion, but yet that's going to come out with some successes because we went into a topic that maybe they didn't want to go into. So as our team is discussing, for example, how we're going to write our protocol about a year and a half ago, I asked them, how do you want to write your protocol? Who do you want to be your authors? How long do you think it'll take? And the team really came forward and said, we want to write our own because I don't want someone writing, like law enforcement said, I don't want someone writing how I'm going to respond to a sexual assault from a different agency. I need to be doing that. And so they really stepped up. And my job as a leader is really to ask them those questions, to get them engaged, to get them processing, to get them working forward towards our shared vision of success. Another big problem, and maybe this kind of overlaps with the facilitator role, but one of the big problems with group projects I find is that not everyone's willing to go against that one person in the room that has the loudest voice or has the ideas for everything. So one thing I do in those situations is I immediately ask, after someone's shared an opinion, a thought, an idea, I say, okay, what about the opposite? Does anyone have something that maybe goes the opposite of what they're saying? Just because I want to get those opposing viewpoints on the table, I want them to know it's okay to not agree with the strongest person in the room, and I want to hear from everyone. And so sometimes I use that little bit of uncomfortableness for them to kind of let it sink in, and then usually someone within a few minutes starts saying, yeah, that's a great idea, however, I think, what about this? We need to think about this when we're doing that. And then someone else starts adding on to that, so it kind of causes a little bit of a chain reaction within my team, and we end up kind of going down the pros and cons of both decisions. And my job really is to get those opinions on the table and to ask them for what they're thinking, good or bad, of what the topic is. So, yeah, that would be about my leadership role.
Great, thanks. I find it intriguing, the different viewpoints. I often find working with teams that sometimes when you incorporate that and are really intentional, that can be a spark of real creativity too.
Yes, it can be, definitely.
Yeah, and different solutions that maybe weren't so apparent at the time. And also just struck me when you're talking about the shared vision of success that I know that you spent considerable time in the start of your team, figuring out what that is and having discussions and dialogue, and then once you did that kind of set the foundation, and then how often you can go back to that.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, let's move on to that facilitator. So what are your words of wisdom for that facilitator role, and what have you learned?
Words of wisdom. Well, I was lucky before I started here. I started here right when my team started in 2009. My director kind of got the right people at the table. So they were in place for me, which made it a lot easier for me. So what I really focused on was facilitating the process. I like to start every meeting by hearing from every voice in the room. That might start right away at the meeting when we do introductions. If we have like a new face in the audience, I'll have everyone do an introductory question. My law enforcement loves that because they think it's too touchy-feely sometimes. But it's just a simple question. If that's not the case, then I do announcements every meeting, and so what I will do is then go around the room and ask each member to tell me what's going on in their world at their office. And if they say nothing, that's fine. At least they've said something. And if they don't say anything, then I'll kind of call on them and I'll say, hey, Val, what's going on at the college today or this month? Just so that they have an ability to get their voice on the table, especially when it's about something small and kind of innocuous like that. They're more willing, I found, to get into discussions and voice their opinions, their thoughts when we get into more in-depth conversations. With my agenda, I try to plan the agenda out based on those simple things towards the beginning, and then once we've been there for a little bit, really, like I said, we meet for an hour and a half. Once we've been there for a while, I really want to get into what we need to get discussed. With my team, I did a survey on them a few years ago about what do you like about working in group meetings and what do you not like about working in group meetings. And the thing that really came to the forefront for me was that they hate going to meetings to then set a meeting for the next meeting to make a decision. Mm-hmm. So I want to have initially where we'll talk about something, and then we'll get into making a decision during that meeting that we've been discussing. Because a lot of them get frustrated that they have to first have one meeting and then come back to make the decision. And that also kind of goes with the facilitation of getting them the information they need like the week before the meeting so that they are aware of what we're going to be talking about. You guys mentioned, kind of establishing a trusting and inclusive environment. I think that's another big role that kind of overlaps with leader and facilitator, and creating that environment so that we can discuss some difficult topics constructively. So, for instance, we had a situation where a victim shared some input that reflected kind of negatively on one of my officers. So the way I addressed that situation is I shared that information privately with the officer ahead of time and mentioned my intention to kind of share that at a team meeting so that we could create some solutions for a system change, not just focusing on the officer. I think he appreciated that I talked. He told me he appreciated that I talked with him first about it, because when I met with him one-on-one, we could figure out how next time he could handle it in a different way. But he also saw the validity of bringing it to the team and saying, how can we make a system change here? Which did raise some interesting ideas, and he even had someone him and I met that then we could bring to the team, and they already saw, okay, we're making an improvement on this response. So, developing that trust with him and then making sure that we can make a good change based off of it, I think went pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's really intriguing too how you made sure that feedback was shared in that realm of systems change, and not focusing on that one officer or just on that one specific response. Again, taking it back to what you're for that leadership role, and creating that buy-in for that shared vision of success. So.
Yeah.
So often, and I'm sure you've been in this position, Jessica, you ask a question and you're met kind of with that crickets or that silence, or if it's not a question but you want some sort of other level involvement, let's say some participation on a committee or something, and you're kind of met with that non-engagement.
Never. That never happens in Marshall.
I know. So what are your thoughts on that?
So when that happens, I usually during a meeting, I kind of, if I'm getting crickets and they're just staring at me, I kind of check for understanding that they even understand what I asked, because sometimes I think I'm speaking clear English and it's really more coming out as Latin, I think. So I check just for body language, if they're searching, if they have eyebrows raised. Sometimes some of them will give me weird expressions. When you've worked in a team for 5 years, you understand their body language a little bit. And I ask them, does this make sense? Do I need to try and explain this? They'll usually respond to that. Our team jokes quite a bit, and they might, if it's a volunteering for something, someone will say, no, I don't want to volunteer, and so we kind of go back and forth on that. Sometimes they'll use my co-chairs. I meet with them usually the week before the meeting, and so if I know it's going to be a tough topic that we have to discuss, I'm going to, and that maybe we're going to get some silence or some non-engagement for, I talk with them about chiming in if they're not understanding how I'm explaining things, because each person explains something differently, and they might connect with what my co-chair is saying versus what I'm saying. Or I just have my co-chair go ahead and start the topic conversation, because maybe I feel like that's an area of expertise for them. So one of my co-chairs was from law enforcement. I thought, well, let's have her introduce this topic because we'll get a better response from the other law enforcement members on the team. So I do that, and then third, if that doesn't work, then I go around the room and say, what are your thoughts on this? What's not making sense? And then I call on them, which they're used to by now, and I get them to tell me what they're thinking or concerns they have, because I've already heard their voice early on in the meeting. So at this point, they're kind of used to me saying, okay, Kathy, what are you thinking right now? Let me know what's going on. And so that's kind of how I meet with the kind of the silence and the non-engagement. And part of that is why it works that I can call on like that is because I've worked with them for quite a few years, so they kind of know what to expect with me. So I think the trust has been built that it's okay to respond to my questions.
Right. And I think that co-chair example that you brought up is a great way to just kind of show, too, that you're not playing all the roles, that we're talking about and that Sharon went over, but you do work hard to identify team members who can fulfill some of those different roles.
Exactly.
Well, finally, can you share some insights into the coordinator role?
Yeah, the coordinator role I see is all the fun stuff behind the scenes of getting the agendas ready, getting information out to the team before the meeting, getting the minutes out to them afterwards, getting the meeting location organized and all that. But one thing I wanted to touch on is that culture of accountability that you guys had mentioned a little bit ago.
Right.
Maybe this is a good way, maybe this is not. But what I do when something's needed from each team member, like recently we were writing our protocol and I needed all their final revisions that they were working on, and some people were kind of dragging their feet. And so instead of me being the one saying, get it into me, we need this to get going, I just go around the circle and I ask each team member, when is it feasible for you to get this done? I want a date so that I have an idea when you think you can get it done so that we can finish this project and move on to our next one. And that way I'm kind of using the team more to hold each member accountable, because then they're not just, oh, Jess is wanting this, but they also, other team members then will ask, have you got this yet from so-and-so? Because they want to get moving forward. So it's kind of a culture of an accountability. And also kind of when you had mentioned that organizing the work for the long term, that intentional planning. When our team was writing protocol, I asked a lot of questions I think it was at the April meeting a few years ago, about how they wanted to write the protocol and how they wanted to edit it and all that. And so at the next meeting, I came forward with like a little grid of how we were going to do it, when each team member's deadline was by, and what steps of how we were going to review it were going to take place. And so the team members had a really clear idea about when their work was going to be done by, when they needed to have everything kind of figured out. And I think that kind of makes it a little bit easier for team members to move forward. For me personally, I need to know what the plan is and when I need to have my stuff done, and then I can go be more creative and do what I need to do when I have an outline set forward. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that too, that culture of accountability helps when you take that first initial step of getting that feedback and the buy-in into the process. Because I know that that's conversations lots of teams have, is how do they set that standard and that culture. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there anything as you've been thinking or chatting that you haven't got to yet that you do want to share with this group?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that first part. What was that, Leah?
Last final comments that you want to share with the group that you haven't covered?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, hang on the line because I know we're getting questions.
Okay.
So don't mute again. And we're going to move on to Grace.
Hello.
Hey, welcome, Grace.
Thank you.
Grace is with the Florida Coalition Against Sexual Violence and has a unique role in a state-level leader who supports a variety of teams throughout Florida. So, Grace, do you want to just share a little bit more about yourself and your role?
Yes. Part of what we do at the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence is that we're the Sexual Assault Coalition for Florida, and so we work with 29 certified rape crisis centers. A lot of them have SARTs, and we provide some support to each of them and have materials. We have a SART development toolkit. But we also have a rural grant from the Office on Violence Against Women, and we work very closely with 4 rural counties in Florida that have, each of them through the grant, have a full-time SART coordinator who spends about half their time doing SART coordination and about half of their time doing victim services. And so we work a lot with those 4 counties.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do the same thing with Grace and just kind of discuss these different aspects. So Grace, do you want to start by just sharing your insights into the leadership aspect?
Yes. The leadership aspect, I think that's the easiest one to, the easiest part to put off is the sitting back and planning and saying, okay, what's the big picture? How can I bring everyone together and make this work?
Right.
And I think that the facilitation and the coordination, they have to get done in order for people to come to a meeting anyway. And so they get done, but the leadership piece is really important because that's what's going to give your teams focus and make sure that they feel like they're moving in the right direction. And where I have seen that work most effectively is when the SART coordinator isn't playing all 3 roles themselves. Mm-hmm. In one of our counties, the assistant state attorney is the co-chair. And so the assistant state attorney and the SART coordinator work in collaboration to plan out meetings, to strategize how to bring the different agencies together. And the state attorney has a lot more sway with some agencies than the SART coordinator who works for the Rape Crisis Center does. And so she's been effective in getting law enforcement to come to the table because they feel accountable to her in the beginning, even if they don't necessarily feel accountable to the team. They will, initially they'll start coming just because she's asked them to.
Right. That's a good example of how to leverage those allies, in the community as well.
Yep. And in terms of, should I move into the facilitator piece now?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay. So there's the leadership piece, the foreplanning, keeping everybody moving in the right direction, just as Jessica said. And then the facilitator piece. That can be hard when people are pulled in many different directions, especially if you're a new team or if you're a team that is coming back together that's kind of faltered. And getting people to come to the meeting can be challenging. And one simple piece that I recommend is not just sending an email to everybody with the agenda, but stopping, especially in rural towns, when you can stop by an agency and make connections and talk with people and say, so the SART meeting's coming up this week. What would you like us to talk about? Here's where we're going. Is there anything specific that you want to address? We'll see you there, right? Okay, good. I'll bring cookies. So that kind of thing. At the very minimum, making phone calls ahead of time and confirming people. Just wanted to make sure that you knew it's at 1 o'clock tomorrow, and it's going to be in this room in this building. Okay, great. We'll see you then.
Right.
Because that's a lot more effective than an email that people can lose in their inbox.
Yeah. Great point. How about your ideas on when the site coordinator or that team leader is met with silence or non-engagement? Can you share your thoughts about that?
Well, I like what Jessica had to say about just calling on people and having them go around the room. I also like what Sharon said, and I've used that before, just giving people some questions and having them turn to the person next to them and talk through things. And so that's something that you can use if you're kind of getting stymied. You could say, well, turn to the person next to you and write down what you think are the 3 biggest issues when it comes to getting feedback from victims on how they were treated by the system. And then bring them back together for a bigger discussion.
I think that's a great point in being intentional about creating different ways for team members to give feedback into the process, because large group discussions are successful in some ways and questions, but there's other successful approaches as well.
And the more a team gets to know each other, the more engaged they're going to be.
Yeah.
I also think, as much as you can, bringing food and making everybody comfortable with each other ahead of time will engage them in conversation during the meeting.
Can we kind of go back to the beginning in the leadership role? And, I thought it was a great point that team coordinators so often end up playing all those different roles, but they don't have to. And what you're talking about is trying to get other team members to buy in and divide up those roles. Do you have any words of wisdom on how to actually accomplish that in practice?
I'd say in practice, and what I've also seen in Florida is that one agency, and I think this happens more often than not, it's the Rape Crisis Center that chairs the SART, because they are the ones that have the biggest commitment to the system coordination, and they really want to see it get done. But I've also seen in communities where other agencies wish that they could have a chance at the leadership role. And as much as you can share that role, the better. And even if it's a sense of you're afraid that you might lose some control of the process, for the strength of the team, it really might be worth it. Or having co-chairs could be worth it. Maybe if you bring it, you could bring it up in a group. What do you think about having co-chairs, about having different officer positions? If you're met with silence at that time, I'd probably just drop it and then individually go back with people and ask them and say, I know that you're really committed to this. You have strong leadership skills. Your view is so important. Would you be willing to be a co-chair? And here's what your role would be, and here's how I could support you in that.
Right. Well, is there anything else? We do have a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to have you stay on the line for that. But just in closing, anything else you want to share just about different things?
No, I'll just wait for the questions.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Grace. And finally, we have Ashley Riley Lopez. Ashley, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ashley's at a conference, so she went well above and beyond, so we so appreciate you being here, Ashley.
Thank you.
Do you just want to share a little bit about yourself and your community and your role?
Sure. I'm the executive director of a dual domestic violence sexual assault agency, TUCASA, and we're located in rural Colorado. We serve 6 federally designated rural counties. We're about the size of Connecticut, but very rural with about 50,000 inhabitants. So I've played a lot of the different roles. I'm the executive director, but I also had the role of facilitating our first SART, which was the Alamosa County SART, and have transitioned to being able to hire a full-time SART coordinator who coordinates our 5 county-specific SARTs throughout our region. And I now serve as the team facilitator for our newest program, also the Children's Advocacy Center of the San Luis Valley, which is a multidisciplinary team. So I'm the facilitator for that also now.
Well, you're very busy. But I really appreciate, though, too, how you brought up the 5 counties and the multiple counties, because we know so many people on the line today, too, are coordinating and working across different counties. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Sure.
So let's just start by discussing your thoughts on the leadership aspect of your role and what you've learned about being a leader.
Sure. I think I've played the leadership role in different stages of SART. So, it's kind of let me, looking back, my 2020 vision, I found that when we were first really creating, reinstituting SARTs in our region, it was very important that I, as the executive director of the organization, was very, very involved in that, principally in the areas of engaging all of the partners, which some of the other Jessica and Grace talked about, those face-to-face meetings, a lot of time with the partners and discussing the importance. So getting that buy-in, you really need somebody who is seen as a leader in the community. Especially in rural areas, I've found that it's very helpful if the coordinator or the person in that role is either from the area, so they have some naturally established relationships, or is seen as kind of somebody who can be trusted or accountable. So that's important. Like I said, the constant FaceTime. And also I think it's really important when you're first starting a SART and you're trying to get that buy-in, that you don't get too bogged down or heavily bogged down in like all the details in the process, but really focus on establishing a shared vision. Because once you establish that and get everyone to the table and everyone feels good about the reason they're there, and things kind of naturally start to flow, and maybe you start to see some impact in the community, that's when you really kind of feel in that buy-in. A lot of times it takes, another meeting, especially, for a lot of our partners, we're traveling long distances to get to see each other, inclement weather. It's not always easy. So I think really focusing on the small successes are really important as being a leader. I would also, a lot of what the other 2 panelists said, being really responsive to the way that your team members want to be communicated with, and how you communicate with them. I know I would love to be able to rely on email at all times because it doesn't take me calling anyone or getting in my car. But that's not the way everyone likes to be communicated with, and it can feel very passive. And so I think, really building those relationships in a way that makes the partners feel important to the process is important.
Yeah. just in talking to you before this too, I know that you shared with us too your thoughts on this role as being a problem solver too, and listening to you and being the ED and your involvement in that. How taking you're a little step back from total direct service, and how you have that vantage point of the big picture. So can you just talk about the pros of seeing that big picture and communicating that?
Sure. So now that we have some of our starts are fairly well established, and we've been able to kind of garner that buy-in, and I have kind of stepped back as being an actual coordinator and have someone, a staff person in that role. Now I see myself in the leader role as more of a problem solver, or like the go-to person when, say, a partner's not participating. So I play that role for my coordinator and for the team members. So I think, I'm that person where if someone's not playing ball, then I can go and have coffee or lunch with them and talk to them and try and figure out what their needs are, bring them back to that shared vision, and so it doesn't fall all on the coordinator. And I think it's really important as leaders of agencies to play that role for our coordinators of teams, because sometimes we have a little bit more, we have a longer relationships with some of the team players, and so that can be very helpful. Finding allies who can also play those roles. We have a very strong relationship with our systems-based law enforcement advocates, and their coordinator has been very instrumental in helping with that also when we have partners at the table. She's also able to play that problem-solving role. And I think, too, I was able to, when we were starting these and continue to do, is I'm always, I forget what, if it's like Geico or something, or no, it's like financial services commercial, but they're like, if you like what we do, let us know. If you don't, let us know so we can fix it. And I've really tried to maintain that mentality for the partners as, I'm okay with you addressing me and our agency and our roles and letting us know if we're doing something wrong. And by being able to accept their criticism and be accountable to them, they're more open to being accountable to us.
Right. So really getting to that transparency. How about your thoughts on being a facilitator and what you've learned?
I think, it's like you all talked about. They're all very interconnected, but can also be separated out. So one of the key things that our facilitator still does, and we do in all our START teams, especially with our newer START teams, we always talk about how the team can help the team members do a better job, but in the way that they want. So we ultimately believe, and we assume positive intent. We assume that all our partners want to do the best they possibly can, and so we see ourselves as the facilitators of helping them to do that. And primarily we address it through requesting that they let us know what areas they have needs in, be it training, be it resources. We kind of position ourselves as, rather than telling them what to do, we facilitate them accessing that knowledge. So be it through sending our prosecutors to training, national trainings, providing our law enforcement with specific materials they want, or bringing down or other organizations to provide training for them. That's a way that we really are able to kind of tailor each team to what each team needs. And so that's something we always address in the meeting, and it's always on the agenda.
That's a great point. And I think it's really crucial to providing opportunities and skills for the discipline-specific response. I mean, for example, law enforcement has unique skills and also a unique role in building that up and providing those opportunities, and then also bringing it back to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were going to ask this from everybody because we know it's just such a common issue out there. How do you feel about really getting that true engagement from team members?
I think it's a combination of, like I said, giving people what they want and need. Ultimately, they want to be able to do a good job, and what we found is we're able to provide them with access to the information or training they need to address specific systems gaps or problems or barriers. Then they really do see the impact, and they're ultimately more confident and secure in doing their work. We're at a conference here in Vail. It's the statewide conference for domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy, and we were sharing yesterday with the Sex Assault Coalition members about some of the successes we're seeing. And, we really are seeing that when we're able to provide people with the training they need, the information they need, the support they need, make it easy for them to ask for support, not make it embarrassing or uncomfortable, but easy to reach out to us and ask for what they need. We're seeing huge improvements in our region's response. So we're talking, more arrests. We're talking more quality of investigation is going up, more communication, more prosecutions. And ultimately, like Jessica said, we're really creating a victim-centered atmosphere throughout the many, many disciplines that we work with. So I think if you can, push through to a point where you can start to focus on some of those, even if they're minute, the minute impacts you're making at the beginning, people get really, really excited. And then they want to come because they feel impactful. And ultimately, most of the disciplines we work with, that's why we got into this work in the first place, is we want to affect positive change through our work. So I think if you can really highlight that, then you're not going to have an issue with engagement. Great.
Thank you so much. Finally, before we get to questions, your insights into the coordinator role.
I liked what both Jessica and Grace said. I really liked the idea Jessica touched on the most about using the meetings to address systematic problems and gaps rather than like personal or agency-specific failures. That's the quickest way to alienate a partner, is to call them out in a disrespectful way in front of the other partners. So having those, be it if the coordinator or the facilitator or the leader, whoever is seen as the most appropriate to have those conversations beforehand, outside of meetings, I think that's extremely important to keeping people feeling comfortable. And then, like I said before, being able as the facilitator, coordinator, leader to also hold yourself accountable and say, hey, like in this case, we could have done this better, or we could have facilitated communication better, or how could we have done our part better? I think when you're able to kind of own up to your shortcomings or perceived shortcomings, then people are it's a lot easier to hear criticism back.
Right, yeah, and I think that transparency that you're talking about starts building that culture of accountability as well. Yeah. Before questions, Ashley, anything else that you want to say that you didn't get to yet?
No, just I know this work can be really hard, and it can feel like you're pulling teeth a lot of times, but hang in there, and it really is, you're fighting the good fight, so stay strong.
All right, thank you. And thank you to the panel, Jessica, Grace, and Ashley. And we've had a number of questions come in. Thank you for your questions. And now if I could just have the panel stay on, and I'll read the different questions that have come in so far, and we'll start by having the panel respond to them, and then any SVGI, Sharon, or myself will chime in. So here we go with the questions. We received one. I work in a rural area and am responsible for establishing a CCR. I have difficulty gaining interest as several stakeholders seem intimidated. They also insist that there aren't areas where they could use training. How can I better present the need for coordination without making it seem like I'm lecturing them? And just in addition to that, it's a very small town, a population of about 700, and the coordinator lives in a city a little distance, 35 miles away, and thinks that they may be perceived as the outsider, and knowing privacy is very important in rural areas.
So I'm open to answering that this year. This is Ashley.
Yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
I would just say if you can establish a local ally, someone who is well connected within the community, who you could start to cultivate a relationship with, hopefully, explaining them, your purpose, what you're doing, and I would say that would be the first thing would be to cultivate, a local person who could serve as kind of your liaison. Over time, you can establish, even though you don't reside there, you can establish that trust, but it does take time. So I would definitely say, a lot of coffees, a lot of meetings, a lot of taking people out to lunch or visiting them in their offices and talking about their needs I think the more they talk about it, the more they'll be open to realizing they do have needs. And one way we found we're able to engage some of the more stubborn partners is if you have any access to dollars for training or materials, publications, offering that as a benefit of participating, like, we could send your chief of police to, this conference, or we could provide all your officers with these cards for their wallet, or, some sort of incentive so that it's not like you're asking them to participate like for nothing, I think shows that you're really invested in the community.
Great,
Can I just piggyback onto that just a second?
Please do.
This is Jess. The one thing, when they had said, they insist that they don't have any areas that they could use training, sometimes I'll go it in the opposite direction. I'll say, okay, well, I would like some training, or my agency would like some training from you, and see if they can establish, like if it's law enforcement, we'd like some training on this information. And when you're at that training, sometimes that sparks some conversations about, okay, why do you guys do it this way? And then they might see how maybe they can use the advocates more or something along that line. So, they might not need training, but maybe you can go at it from a more, I hate to say humble, but humble standpoint of, well, could you do some trainings for us? See if that opens that door of that relationship building like Ashley is talking about, and maybe developing a relationship with them.
I think that's a great idea.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Show them you respect them as the expert.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really good advice.
I usually don't get into trouble if I ask questions first.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point. Grace, do you have anything to add?
No, it is hard. You need to get as much local leadership as possible. I'm from Tallahassee, and in Florida, we're not a big city, but for the rural areas, we are the big city.
Sure, yeah. Well, Jessica, this question came up during your presentation, and a question if probation is involved in your team, and if so, how are they involved?
Okay. So for our team, we are funded through VAWA STOP grant dollars, and so in order to get that grant funding, we had to have 5 core disciplines agree to be on the team, and probation was one of them. So prosecution, probation, medical, advocates, and law enforcement. So probation signed on right away, and our agency had a good working relationship with them because we had done a touch play with them, which was a play that was before my time, where they would go around to local schools and do good touch, bad touch, and probation was involved with that, and they're a fun group of people. We work well with them. And so our probation officer, he's, I think, the direct supervisor for this county, he comes to the team meetings. And the one thing we found through him being on the team is there wasn't a real big connection between victim services and probation. So they get involved when a victim does a victim impact statement, and they write the pre-sentence investigation, and they go to the sentencing, but are they always connecting that victim to an advocate if they weren't connected to one? So through our team meetings, we found it was really best that they need to put that in their protocol, that they're contacting the advocate agency saying, we send out a victim advocate information to this victim. I don't know if you've met with them or not, but we're just letting you know, and we let them know about your services available to them. So in the end, I kind of wondered, how is probation going to work in this exactly? I didn't see the big picture there. But as we've gone down this road together, we realized there's a way that we should be connecting more for that victim. Right. So it worked out really well.
Great point, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
This question came up during Grace's presentation, so Grace, this is for you. Somebody asked if you could repeat the question for 3 ways. They thought that was helpful.
Okay, I think it was something like, what are the 3 most critical things to consider for getting feedback from victims about the process or about the response to sexual assault survivors?
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of you, starting out, how did you get other agencies involved?
The way we did it is we knew we wanted to do SARTs in rural counties because in Florida those are the places that were least likely to have SARTs. So we talked with the rape crisis centers in several different rural counties, and said, how are your relationships with law enforcement and the state attorney's office and the local hospital? And probably about half of those counties that we talked to had pretty good relationships. So then the head of those rape crisis centers engaged the sheriff, the state attorney, the hospital, either the ER director or whoever was the best person to talk to at the hospital about getting buy-in for the grant. We wrote for the grant, and then we came back and we said, we've got the grant. And they said, what grant? So we started those conversations all over again and said, we have this CERT, and thank you so much for committing to it. Here are the things that we want to do. We met individually with each agency again and asked them to come and kind of laid out the plan for it. And then just bringing allies, getting people who support it to talk to the other folks, but as many in-person conversations as possible was the most effective way for us to do it.
Great, and I think a great point too on how you have to have the same conversation sometimes many times.
Yes.
Chuckled a bit, but it's also very true. So, Jessica and Ashley, do you have any thoughts on starting out how to get agencies involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked a lot about that. Mostly, a lot of the FaceTime, and then picking who you use as the person to go to a specific agency. If it's, law enforcement, if you have someone in law enforcement who believes in the SART or thinks it's a good thing that the community needs, then use them to meet with those people in conjunction with yourself or the coordinator. Use someone who's already has established relationships to kind of promote the idea. And then, like Grace said, we did, same thing for us. Like we would have people sign on, and then we're like, okay, now we're ready to do it. And they're like, wait, what? We had to explain it to them again. So a lot of meeting with people one-on-one, meeting with heads of agencies. So getting that FaceTime so that you have their buy-in and they're sending the right person to the table. So
great, thanks, Ashley.
I have to agree with what the other two ladies said. It's really just meeting with the people, getting them interested in the topic. And the one experience that I've had with this is our team started renewing our interagency agreement to keep working, and we wanted to invite new agencies to the team, other law enforcement centers, other hospitals. And so in those situations, my team members volunteered. My law enforcement officer said, yeah, I'll go talk to Chad in Minneota. I'll go see if he wants to join the team and get signed on. So again, using those people that already have those relationships to start that conversation that you can then come in and say, okay, yep, here's the paperwork. Let's get this going.
Right. Great, thank you. I've also seen it successful where people have agency-wide, like an introductory meeting, invite agency leadership and those that might be vested in the process to explain the goals of the team, to establish that focus early on, to make clear the expectations and so on, so that people know what they're being asked to sign on to. Well, we have a number of other questions. Let's take one more and then we'll see where we're at with time. If we don't get to all the questions, we will follow up with you individually too, just an FYI on that. So let's ask this one. After a team has been in place a while and the protocol has been completed, what do you do during your meetings besides talking about cases, and how often do you meet?
I can say our teams, when we're first starting out, we would meet monthly, and then once then we moved to quarterly meetings as an entire SART, and then we still have case review on a monthly basis. So the involved parties who need to be at the table for us at the case review, those are conducted on a monthly basis, and then everyone who's involved in that SART, all the partners come together quarterly. That way, you're not, people who want to meet and need to meet to discuss specific cases still can do that, but then other partners are allowed to not have to come every single month, another meeting.
Great, thank you.
This is kind of exactly where the SART team in Lyon County has been. We finished our protocol. And so now we're looking at training everyone on the protocol and then evaluating that protocol. So right now we've always met every month for an hour and a half, and we're trying to evaluate and we're trying to figure out how to best do that with victims to find out if the protocol is working for them. We have surveys that victims have completed online that we have a few answers from, but not enough. So my team is kind of going down the road of maybe we need to start doing some in-person interviews with those victims to find out if this response is better for them. If each victim is going to be different, but we need to talk to them and find out what's working, what's not. So we're kind of going into the evaluation of the work we've done, and some of that is kind of planned out that we're going to be working on. Some of it's kind of informal. We had quite a few sexual assaults one weekend, and so I went over to law enforcement's office that next day or Monday and said, okay, this little bump in the road came up. How do we want to address this? And so we were able already to start talking about what we need to do for the future, or if it can stay the same. And yeah.
Great, thank you. And Jess alluded to the 8-step protocol development cycle. That is a tool for organizing for the work that we provide technical assistance to from SVGI. So if you're interested more about that, please contact me or Sharon or any of us here at SVGI. So why don't we take one more question and then we'll close. There will be another webinar coming up on SART, so kind of a continued conversation. I want to get to that information to you, but let's go with this question here. When serving multiple counties, did you find one regional team was useful, or did it work better to have multiple teams?
I'm assuming I should answer that one, or maybe Grace, but we tried. We really wanted to be able to do like a regional SART. It just didn't work, and the counties were they wanted things to be specific to them, and they're, as many of you know, living in multi-county region, these types of jurisdictions, they are very different, and they wanted to create their own protocols that worked for their own responding systems, and so we had to go to county-specific teams. Our goal was to have a regional. We're trying to do that now with our multidisciplinary team for our Children's Advocacy Center program. We're doing a regional multidisciplinary team, and then we're doing county-specific case review. So I'll keep everyone posted on whether or not that works.
That'd be great. Do you have any ideas for that one, the multiple counties?
This is Grace, and I've also seen it. In some areas of the counties feel very closely tied together anyway, and they're not, because maybe it's the tri-county whatever, and they always think of themselves as, always related anyway. But even then, we find that there's drop-off if it's being hosted in, say, Suwannee County, then you won't have a bunch of people from the county over attend. And so I think even though it's more work, the more successful SARTs are county-specific.
Great, thanks.
I think, too, like you mentioned, too, Grace, like having the meeting in their county is really helpful, too. Rather than if you do like a regional, you pick one, and then the people from like the outerline county don't show up, and it's not representative. So like moving those meetings around to have them in the actual county at a central location helps people attend.
Great.
I agree.
Thank you both. I've also seen it work with multiple counties to have meetings in the counties, like what you were saying, Grace and Ashley, and then to have like quarterly meetings of the tri-county area, those common areas, or to build a knowledge base, or to share the training, or whatever it may be, or if that same hospital or program is in one of the larger jurisdictions, and they're sharing services to bring together the counties quarterly too, can be helpful.
That's a good idea.
All right. Well, thank you very much to our panel, Ashley and Grace and Jessica. It was very kind of you to be on, and we really appreciate your wisdom and perspective and insight. We did not get to all the questions, but just so you know, we will follow up with you regarding those questions. And our upcoming webinar will be really kind of continuing this conversation. So we kind of said, the foundation here, what team leadership is, a critical role. And then in August, on August 5th, we will be having a webinar. We're calling it SART 101, but more specifics on the SART team and how they can function, how to develop and grow. And from that, we'll be hearing from the West Virginia Foundation for Rape Information and Services. Again, they operate in very rural areas, so we want to try to make this information really helpful for all of you working in those rural areas. So know that going in. And that announcement will be coming out within the week. So, and you probably received that announcement a few times, just so you have multiple times to register for it. And thank you to our panel and to Sharon, and thank you to all of you who are doing this work out in the field. And thank you for your questions. Contact information for us here at SVJI at MNCASA is there from this webinar, and we hope to hear from you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.